We got in the studio Craig Stevens, Chief Executive Officer of DubiCars. Morning, Craig.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Surprised that BYD has overtaken Tesla?
No.
Why?
Well, I think we saw it on the wall. I think when 12 months ago, when BYD started to get real traction in China. I mean, don't forget, China is the largest car market of the world. They are heavily pushing EVs and incentivizing EVs. And I think that's where, BYD have done incredibly well. They've grown substantially in the Chinese market.
What about here in the UAE? Last year we had BYD signing a deal with Overtaking, probably the biggest distributor here in the UAE of cars. We know them for Toyota, Lexus, Volvo and many, many others. So they are selling their cars officially here. I looked on your website a couple of days ago. There were 35 BYD electric vehicles available, starting from about 70,000 dirhams. I think the cheapest one was. That's a used car up to 200,000 dirhams plus. What's the market like for these BYD cars here?
Well, I mean, we've been talking about EVs for quite some time now, and the stat I'm going to give you now is the same stat I've been giving you for the last 3 years, that of overall demand that we're seeing, still only 4% demand is coming for electric vehicles, and that just hasn't changed, albeit of a bigger market. The market has grown over the last 3 years, but 4% is still EVs. There's a different dynamic now that we're seeing with the introduction of BYD plus other Chinese EV manufacturers that are coming to the market. If we look at what Overtaking are doing with BYD, they've brought two cars into this marketplace, and they've only just done that. And they're slightly cheaper than the Teslas by about 50,000-60,000 for an equivalent kind of product, so it is a cheaper product. The other cars you're seeing are being brought in by official importers that are bringing those cars in directly from China, and they are at a much lower price point.
So when I see a BYD car for 70, 80, 90,000 dirhams on your website, but the cheapest one you can buy through Overtaking is, I think, 140,000 dirhams.
149, yeah.
It's a different model.
It's a different model, that's right. They haven't started officially importing those BYDs into the UAE as yet. I assume they are going to do that. But I think that's when it becomes a bit of a game changer for the EV market. I think when you're starting to see cars come in at 80, 90, 100,000, suddenly that becomes very affordable. And I think that's what needs to happen in the EV market to get real traction, is these cars need to be affordable.
So if we look at Tesla versus BYD through your site, Craig, who's winning? What have you seen?
Well, BYD are winning. Tesla data has stayed absolutely flat this year. Demand for Teslas on our site has not changed all year. If I look at
when you say year, you mean 23?
Sorry, yes, I forgot we're in a new year now. Yes, if I look back over the whole of 23, demand really has been flat, and BYD's, albeit from a smaller base, BYD's demand has doubled from January to December. I think what the interesting thing's going to be is that the people that bought Teslas, and I hope Georgina's not listening, but the people that bought Teslas, a couple of years ago, are now starting to sell those cars and finding that actually, the price of those cars for used Teslas is incredibly low. There doesn't seem to be a market for used Teslas at the moment. People are buying new Teslas. Therefore, that's going to have an impact on new car prices if you can't get rid of your previous Tesla at a good price.
Could you put a ratio on it? If the demand, because we're talking about the demand for BYDs versus Teslas, but what about the actual numbers of sales?
Yeah, so Tesla is 3 times the volume of BYD demand.
For you?
For us, yeah. And I think that's probably what we're going to see across the whole market, because BYD has only just officially come into this market in the last 12 months. So I think it's hard to compare like for like because of that. I mean, Tesla has been in the market for years. BYD officially has only been in for the last 12 months. But I think, going back to the price point, I think that's going to be the key thing here, I think, because BYD is coming in with a better price point. I think that's going to be far more attractive for consumers to consider.
We're talking about this as if it's a two-horse race at the moment, and that's the headline on the Financial Times. They use the phrase, BYD has knocked Elon Musk off his perch. Fine, they are the two biggest at the moment globally in terms of volumes. They're both about 500,000 a quarter for pure-play electric vehicles. But it's not a two-horse race, is it? You've got certainly the big established brands, the likes of your Volkswagens, are producing electric vehicles as well. And then out of China, a number of relatively new brands that are not household names are pumping out electric vehicles. So how would you characterise the broader EV market here in the UAE at the moment?
Well, I mean, in the UAE, realistically, it's not a two-horse race because we've got Tesla, and then we can see we've got the German manufacturers producing good quality EVs, but they're all premium cars. I think the challenge is the volume cars. So what do we see in China? We see at the moment there are 50 EV manufacturers, and most of them now are running out of funding. So we're going to see huge mergers going on, I think, in China in the next 5 or 6 years. The predictions are that they'll go from 50 to 10 manufacturers in the next 5 years. So we're going to see consolidation in the Chinese market. I think with the traditional manufacturers, I think they're just finding how difficult it is to make that transition from combustion engine to EV engine, and how much effort, skill, focus is required. And I think they're struggling, right? Because that's a big disruption to their marketplace. So I think the analysts are right. It is a two-horse race at the moment because Tesla and BYD have got such a massive head start on everyone else.
What's the sweet spot on your website for an electric vehicle in terms of price point?
Well, I think our market is different to most of the markets. So, look, at the moment, our sweet spot is the higher price point for the Teslas or the EV Porsches or EV Audis. That's what we're seeing traction on at the moment. I think what we need to see is a price point around 100,000 dirhams for a new EV to come in to make it attractive for consumers. I think that's the gap that's missing at the moment. I think that's the gap that BYD are going to fill.
What's the cheapest electric vehicle I could buy on Sheikh Zayed Road, a new vehicle this morning? Overtaking will sell me a BYD for 143,000 dirhams. I know MG, another Chinese manufacturer, have had a relatively affordable one. Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, I think, through the official distributors, you're looking at around 110,000, 120,000 dirhams. Through one of the official channels. If you're going to go through an importer who's brought one in direct from China, as you've seen on our site on DubiCars, you're going to see that for 70,000, 80,000 dirhams. There are challenges when you buy those cars because your warranty may not be adhered to by the manufacturer if you're buying through those export channels. But yeah, I mean, you are starting to see those price points come in. What we need to see is those official channels now bringing in those cars at those price points.
Finally, petrol prices fell again this month. I filled up my mid-size SUV yesterday, just over 200 dirhams, and it was on empty. The economics in terms of fuel bills aren't really in favour of EVs at the moment, are they?
They're not, and I think that's why, in December we saw another softening of EV demand. I think with petrol prices coming down, it's just not a driver to make people make that switch, and I think that's why the price of the car's got to come down dramatically to make it interesting for the consumer to make that switch.
Craig Stevens of DubiCars, always good to talk to you. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for weighing in on the electric car wars between BYD of China and Elon Musk's Tesla. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.